it's compounding, right? Success on anything, but definitely with Etsy selling and selling online in general is you compound all these skills. It's not like linear growth. It's like sometimes just like one little puzzle piece falls into the perfect spot, and then all of a sudden it completes the entire picture for you. And then you have to figure out the next puzzle piece that's missing, and then you break it open again over time.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Built Online podcast, where we talk about all things online business, from e-commerce to digital marketing to building your dream life and your dream business. I'm your host, Cody McGuffie, and if you've been with us for a while, you might remember us as the Etsy Seller Podcast. Well, we're expanding our horizons and transitioning from just talking about Etsy businesses to covering all types of online businesses, because we believe the opportunity is so massive that we should be covering so many unique businesses online. And at EverBee, we believe that everyone deserves the opportunity to pursue their passions, live life on their own terms. And we believe in making e-commerce accessible to everyone in the world, no matter where they are, and be using it to make a positive impact in our families and in our communities. We believe that anyone who truly commits to something, truly pursues it with undeniable force of will, that they will succeed. Let's jump into today's show.
Julie, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Super happy to have you here. We just did a podcast exchange, kind of. I was on your podcast, a week ago before this, and happy to have you on Built Online.
It's been a long time coming for both of us, so excited.
Totally. When did we meet each other? We met each other probably like a year and a half ago, right? Something like this.
I think a year and a half ago, and we didn't realize that we were both serious business owners until we ended up in the same business membership mastermind. So that's been fun.
Totally. We're like nerds, business nerds, I guess you could say.
Yes.
And we get to talk about Etsy, which is kind of another like sub niche within the business world. Sub niche.
Mhm.
Crazy. I'm excited to have you on to talk I want to learn selfishly from you, but two, I'm excited to have you on to like for all of our audience to kind of be a fly on the wall in the conversation too. So for them who don't know you, who are you?
I'm Julie Berninger. I'm a mom of two from Massachusetts, although I've lived all over in the past decade and recently migrated back to New England. I used to work in tech, so I was climbing the corporate ladder, working in big tech, worked in California, Silicon Valley, worked in Seattle. And then once I had my daughter and I realized I was living two different lives at once. I was selling on Etsy, I was podcasting and blogging at night and on weekends. And then during the day, I was in back-to-back meetings. I was starting to kind of rise up the career ladder in tech. I realized I couldn't live both lives at once and also have a family. So I took a chance and I left my corporate job in 2021 and I haven't looked back. It's been an incredible ride. And this is really where I was meant to be.
Wow, that's amazing. So two daughters. You said two daughters,
Yes.
and you left your current stable job to what did you pursue? Like, how did you bridge that gap of financial? You still have finances, right? You still have things that
So,
cost money.
a long time ago, my husband and I found a student loan payoff blog, and it put us down the rabbit hole of this debt journey where we married for love and not money, and somehow we ended up in 100K of student loan debt between the two of us. And then once we paid off that debt, we were thinking, okay, well, what's next? And we already had good habits and we were kind of making the moves. The reason we moved so much is because we were trying to make more money and get better jobs and all of that. And so we started putting our funds towards early retirement. So our original goal was to walk away in our 30s, which we're in now, and never have to work again. And we met all of these mentors and incredible people who had made that a reality. So we saw, oh, this could work. But I caught the bug of entrepreneurship and I actually never want to start working. And the two of us keep bumping our retirement date. We just bumped it to 50 and 53 because we're like, hey, we're just getting started. We're not ready to stop
Mhm.
working. So
How do you define
that's how we got
retirement?
there.
That's super interesting because I have a very similar journey with my wife. Well, how do you define retirement today? Because I'm sure it's different definitions than when you first started thinking about retirement.
Yes, and my husband has many hobbies. He's one of those guys that he has all the equipment for all the hobbies. So for him, retirement means he has his free time to do whatever he likes to do. He likes archery, he likes all these different outdoorsy things, fishing. That's what he was hoping to do. For me, I like having the ability to work on mission-driven things that make me feel like I'm helping the world and make me very passionate. I guess I'm more of like an enthusiastic person. I like to work with other people, collaborate, and kind of spread my enthusiasm for things. So right now, as a business owner, I want to help other small business owners. I want to help other women business owners. And the fact that I found that through my company, Gold City Ventures and Etsy, I feel like I've already done it. That being said, we have little kids. So even if we were retired, I mean, I still have to wake up and maybe I don't have to attend a meeting anymore, but I'm dealing with all the kid stuff that comes to it. So I never really could feel retired, I think, at this stage in our 30s.
That's crazy. Yeah, I totally agree. So at this point, you're bumping retirement to 53. Your husband works full time. Does he have his own business? What does he do? Just for kind of everyone to understand kind of what the family
He
dynamic is.
works full time as a strength and conditioning coach, and we're like the same person, but we're on two different missions. So health is his ultimate driver. Health,
Okay.
health is wealth, and he's one of those people. Like he eats healthy, he works all the time. That's him. For me, I like business that really, really drives me. So that's kind of my ladder. And then we come together with family. We both have the same values when it comes to that. But for
How,
him, he's working full time and he's working with people that get him jazzed every day about they also care about this stuff too, and it makes them happy.
how many kids do you have now? Is it
So
just
we
still
have
two?
we have 2 kids. We're talking about adding the 3rd. I think that's what everyone does, and, it's
I
tough. There's the pros and cons list of just when you feel like you finally have everything managed, it's like, "Let's just throw another kid into the wrench and see how that happens." But,
so crazy.
more kids, more fun, I think.
Totally the same. We were done at two, and now we have one on the way in December. So it's like the next few months we're gonna be right back in it. It's crazy.
Yep. Congratulations.
Thank you. I know it's a blessing for sure. It is hard, as you know. I think it's harder for moms. It's obviously it's harder for women. Like I see the stuff that my wife deals with, and then if you throw business on there, if you throw like ambitions on there too, it's like you're getting pulled in different directions. Then you have this like guilt that comes in there too of being like a mom and like spending any time away from your kids and you're thinking about the business and like how do you think about that? I know as a dad, I feel those things, but I believe as a mom, it'd probably be like next level. Do you have any relation to that?
Cody, you're speaking my language here, story of my life. So, one of the reasons I left corporate is because I got promoted to a management position, and all of my peers had stay at home wives, which was fantastic. But I'm like, well, where's my stay at home wife? And my husband, he loves what he does, and doesn't
Mhm.
really make sense because sometimes, at least in our family, the mom has a different role than the husband. So I feel like with online business and why it's so important for people to have a successful online business, whether it's a small Etsy shop, whether it's a course, whatever, that will give you the flexibility at a particularly vulnerable time in your life to just choose your own adventure. So for me being a mom, the fact that I can work online means I did bus stop this morning. I'm going to do bus stop this afternoon. I see my kids for lunch. I have the 18-month-old. She's running around upstairs with our nanny that we love, but I can kind of be a part of their day and keep things moving in the home, but then I can also still be making money and enjoying what I do online. So every day I kind of feel like the luckiest person because I just think it's amazing how it worked out for me. And I guess it didn't really just work out. I had to learn a skill.
Yeah.
So, if it hasn't happened for you yet, and perhaps choose Etsy as your thing and just like go for it. And maybe that might not
Mm.
be your ultimate end destination, but you have to learn how to run a business. And Etsy is like the perfect small business owner MBA startup that there ever was. So I really feel strongly that it's a great first step for people that do want to create that flexibility.
Totally, completely, 1000% appreciate this because the idea is for me, it's like integrating business into your family life is what you kind of were describing just now. Like you went and dropped the kids off, and then you went to work probably for a little while, then you had lunch with the kids, and like you did all these things intertwined throughout your day versus just like working for the 8 hours and then coming home and being a mom. It's like you can be both at the same time and it's not always easy and clean, but you can be those things when you have like an online business, which is I think it's the most special part about it. It gives you that like freedom, life freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom. You have a lot more choice in your life, it seems like.
Right, and it's about choices because not everyone wants to make the same decision. I mean, I have friends that they love what they do and they wanna go to work, and that's fine, but if you're someone that isn't the choice that you wanna make, an online business can help you kinda piece together the lifestyle that you ultimately want.
I wrestle with this question in my head a lot is, do you really believe, I'm asking myself this, but I'm also kind of asking you, that every single person should be an entrepreneur to some degree?
Okay, I'll tell you, hard no. Absolutely not. And how I know this, so back when I was pursuing the early retirement, my podcast co-host, because we had a podcast about early retirement in which we interviewed over 200 people in the span of a couple years about how they did it. And we had people living on boats and we had people that were living in RVs. And it's almost before I had kids, I kind of interviewed everyone to figure out what life I actually wanted to go for. It was just a blessing in disguise at the time to kind of get that experience to ask people whatever questions you want about their life. And my co-host, she actually thought she wanted to be an entrepreneur and I thought I wanted to stay in my job. And she left her stable job and tried, and I watched her like flail basically. Um Not that she wasn't going to be successful, but just some people it's just not for them. Like there's just nothing in life is without stress and the stressors and not knowing where your paycheck's going to be and also realizing you're not going to get paid as an entrepreneur unless you go out and do the things particularly at first to help you get paid. That doesn't work for everyone. So now she is perfectly happy back in a corporate job, and then I'm the one that ended up being
That's
the
so interesting.
entrepreneur. So yeah, I think for everyone, it truly isn't for everyone. And for me, I know it's for me. Like I just know I'm never meant to work for anyone else. And even if an online business didn't work out, I'd be buying the laundromat down the corner or a pizza shop or whatever. Like I'm going to be an entrepreneur until I die, unless it doesn't work out for me for whatever reason.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I completely agree. And I think I agree with everything you said, with maybe an asterisk of like, I still feel like your friend, and I don't know your friend, but I'm just assuming she probably learned so much more about herself doing that entrepreneurial journey than she did working for the full-time job. Nothing wrong with a full-time job, by the way. It's an amazing thing. We need people. Like we have an incredible team here at EverBee too, and I know you do too at Gold City Ventures. But I think you just learn a lot about yourself, whether it's a full-time entrepreneurial journey or it's even just like a side hustle of just like I'm trying to sell something online to make like an extra car payment. You still learn so much more about yourself during that time. So I kind of that's the argument I make in my head of like I think everyone should be some sort of a business owner to some degree.
Oh yeah, and you never know until you try. And I think life is all about chapters. And when I look back, I mean, we truly lived in 3 different states in the last decade. Now we're pretty permanently settled here. This is where we want to raise our kids, but I'm so glad that I had those different experiences, those different jobs. I've never regretted giving something a try because you never know until you go for it. And best case scenario, like myself, if I didn't go for it, where would I be now? I wouldn't be sitting here having told you that did the bus stop. I'm going to do lunch later with the 18-month-old. I'm going to do the bus stop on the way home. I'm going to drive them to whatever activity we have this afternoon. And I'm kind of going to get to live 2 different lives at once, whereas before I felt like I would have to pick one or the other.
Yep, I totally agree. Switching gears a little bit to the Etsy journey, a little bit more, diving deeper there. How did you get into I understand, like, how you got into Etsy, but, like, how did you choose what worked for you in building an Etsy shop and all this stuff? Because you obviously were successful enough to where you could be a full-time mom at the same time of being, like, a business owner. What did you go into? Was it print on demand? Was it handmade products? Was it digital products? Let's talk about that.
So for me, because I was doing this as a side hustle, I was all about going for what would be the most profitable, and I wasn't necessarily a talented person, like a talented maker in any sense of the word. So at the time, I was going to bachelorette parties, and what I liked about that niche is that 15 to 20 women would order the same thing at once, and then they'd have to Venmo the maid of honor or whoever organized it a ridiculous amount of money for throwaway doodads. And as a business owner, you were like, awesome. And then from a design perspective, bachelorette parties are somewhat tacky. So if you're if you're coming into it and you're a little bit nervous about your own skill set getting started as a seller, then picking a low pressure niche like a bachelorette
Mm,
party is good. Whereas, wedding, there are higher design standards, there's higher quality standards for every element of the piece. For me, that is what made the most sense. So my average order size was very large, it was or $15 to $20 per order, which as someone with a good full-time job, I didn't want to be doing things to make like $4 or $5. I wanted to be making these large orders. And I was selling temporary tattoos because I was living in an apartment and I needed something that would fit in a closet or under the bed. So that was my whole thing. And now,
Okay.
then
So
when the
they're
digital
physical products, like, you were legit, like, making these at home and then shipping them out after you got these $20
I
orders.
was I had a production partner and I was in the design piece of it. So Etsy allows you to kind of say who your production partner is, and then I was more designing. And I realized how important the niche was because sometimes my designs would get crossed with kids' birthday parties or other elements. The birthday parties were good because I got large order quantities, but then sometimes I would get an order where someone wanted to buy something for themselves and they would only buy 2. And I get so frustrated. I'm like, "Oh, I just had to package this, go to the store, worry about all this for just 2 sales." Whereas if I stay in the bachelorette, I'm gonna get an order of 15 to 20. So that was a huge learning lesson of the niche that you pick is important. Bulk orders are really important to making a lot of money with little time. And that was before I got into the digital products, but that was my primer on Etsy.
That's interesting. So this got you into the game, and then let's double tap on the digital products because that's kind of where you ended up going, like, really further, right?
Yes. So I ended up going to a conference completely by myself, which I guess I'm somewhat extroverted, but very intimidating to do that. But I just knew, okay, I need to learn more about business stuff. So went to a conference. I was living in Seattle, drove down to Portland at the time, and ended up meeting a girl awkwardly in line for tacos. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna not talk to anyone for like 3 days, so I better just talk to her. And she sold digital products on Etsy and was making 6 figures selling planners. And I'm thinking the whole time, like, what am I doing with physical products? Which, by the way, I love supporting handmade sellers. We have them in our community. I buy all of my birthday gifts for people, Christmas gifts on Etsy. But for me personally, the digital side just made a lot more sense with where I was at in my life at the time. So I switched to digital bachelorette party things. And once I got my first sale there, I'm like, yes, this is where it's at for me. So I switched my shop to that.
I'm saying when you made that switch, what was the journey like after that? Did you immediately take off? Did it take some time, take some learning, and then eventually you started crushing it? And then how'd that transition look how'd that transition look like for you?
So, one of the first products I chose was a bachelorette party bar scavenger hunt, and it did take off pretty quickly. I tried other ones like anyone, and I did get lucky in that because I had already went through the process of better understanding my niche, it wasn't like I was brand new, and I already kinda understood to look to see what other products are selling on Etsy and what did customers like about them and what could I offer in my product. Like, for example, gold and rose gold were the aesthetic color scheme that people wanted in bachelorette party stuff at the time, so I made one of the first bar scavenger hunts that were that color. And then over time, actually, my bestseller started to lose its steam because I realized that people somehow saw that people wanted the scavenger hunts to be hung in lanyards around people's necks when they were going on the bar crawl. So then I had to do 5x7s because originally I did letter size, which it does make a lot more sense. But I mention that because sometimes I hear people say, oh, my bestseller's not selling anymore, but then they don't really look at, well, why isn't it selling anymore? It's because
Mm,
it's the market has changed and culture and art imitate each other. So you got to go and see, well, what are people doing now for bachelorette parties? And you need to update your stuff. So I had a little bit of a journey to figure out where I was going with that. But once I did, I thought, oh, wow, there's something here. Like, this is an incredible side hustle.
that's so cool. And then Gold City Ventures comes into the play. When did this how did this come about? And where did this come from?
So at the time, I had the podcast about early retirement, and I'm also selling on Etsy. And anytime I had a podcast episode about Etsy, I always had download numbers that were like double the other download
Mm,
numbers. And I noticed that people listened longer, I got more emails, people were very interested in it. And could it be that I was more passionate about it, so making a better episode? Could it be that just for whatever reason people were interested in being Etsy sellers? I didn't really know, but as a business owner, I knew enough to kinda lean into that. So, one thing that I did is I offered a mastermind to my listeners saying, "Hey, at this point," I'm like, "I'm not an expert on Etsy. Yes, I have, more sales than you at this time, but why don't we meet? Why don't you pay me almost for the accountability of us meeting for 6 weeks, and let's see, like, can we get our Etsy shops off the ground?" And one of the guys that was in our group, he was interested in personal finance. So he made a personal finance Etsy shop. His name's Kevin Jones. He's still working for me as a coach today. Like one of my very first people that paid
So
me
cool.
to be in the mastermind. So I think it's just so cool. Like I've been able to, he's an architect, so he has no interest in doing this as more than a side hustle, but he's just been with me the entire time. Now he has 9,000 sales on Etsy. It's just been incredible. So that's kind of where it started, where I realized I'm not the only one here that thinks this is just cool and incredible. And there's a community and a market for this information.
That is so cool. So for anybody listening to this right now, and for myself, what does exactly Gold City Ventures do? Like, what's the main thing that you do inside of Gold City Ventures, and like Kevin does, like as a coach? What does that look like?
Okay, so now, and I have a business partner, Cody, too, but it's myself and Cody Berman.
Name.
And it's a great name. And the two of us recorded a series of video tutorials, which we update all the time. Canva just launched a new UI, so we're updating them again. Just keep everything perfect for people and easy to follow. But it's how to start a digital products Etsy shop, both from the Canva design side and then also from the keyword research and market point of view. So the things I mentioned, like how to get bulk orders, how to run sales in your Etsy shop, how to find and spot good opportunities where there's less competition for your product, what aesthetic your product should have. All of that is included in a series of over the shoulder and then also talking video tutorials to help you understand the strategy. But that's where we started. And then really what sets Gold City Ventures apart from the other kind of Etsy gurus that are out there is that it's not just me and Cody. We hired these 6 coaches. So Kevin is one of the OG coaches, but our newest coach was Emily, who was on your podcast that has made almost $400,000 on Etsy. We've attracted these incredible Etsy sellers. We have 6 of them right now. And then my entire staff, they sell on Etsy. So the people that do every single piece, they do media outreach, all of that, they all sell on Etsy, social media, because we hire from our own community. So I've got these incredible
So cool.
talented people. A lot of them are moms, right? So they're looking for, a part-time job. And I think it's just been incredible. We've been able to build this community. So we have the coaches, and then we have a community, a membership community on Facebook where you can ask any questions you want any day. We have live trainings, we have weekly audits, 30-day printable challenges. And then our claim to fame is that once you reach 100 sales on Etsy with us, we send you a gift in the mail and you join our 100 sales club, in which you no longer have to pay for the community. It's a lifetime. So people, that accountability piece is what I learned early on with the mastermind, and that's what gets people actually to achieve the goals that they want with the side hustle.
I think that's really, really special, and it's very cool. And it's so we overcomplicate this stuff in business, but really when it comes down to it, if you play a sport, for example, I played football and baseball and stuff all throughout high school, and then played football in college. I was thinking about this, and I'm like, I have a coach literally my entire life, right? You have a coach, and they hold you. Not only are they teaching you how to like work out and like how to catch a ball and stuff like this, mostly it's about the accountability, like making sure that you show up, making sure that you are keeping the promises that you made to yourself to be the best you can be. And for some reason, when it comes to business, we like shut that off a little bit, and we kind of think that we just have to do it all by ourselves. And you mentioned accountability like 3 times, 4 or 5 times, like in the last 30 seconds. It sounds like that's probably one of the biggest issues that new Etsy sellers probably have, or new business owners probably have when selling online. Would you agree with that?
That's the number one issue, and we're all human. We have lives outside of selling on Etsy. We have things that happen. Our kids get sick, our parents get sick. We have other things, we get sick. We have other things that happen that kind of prevent us from reaching our goals. And to be successful in business, you don't need to kill yourself 24 hours a day, but you do have to kind of stay at the same thing for at least like 30 days. That's what we say. Like, please, like, just give us like your first month where you're not having shiny object syndrome, moving from one thing to the next thing. Like, you're going to be a successful digital products Etsy seller. Stick with us. We're going to do a challenge so that you don't give up. You're going to meet with these coaches, ask them questions to learn that hard feedback of like, wait, why isn't my listing selling? Those of us that have thousands of sales, we know why your listing isn't selling. But when you're new, you have no clue. And it just
No
seems
idea.
like, oh, this is frustrating. I want to give up. Why haven't I made all this money yet? And sometimes it just takes that little extra thing to kind of keep you focused. And then once we'll hear from people, it takes people different amount of times to get to the 100 sales club. Some people, I would say the fastest I've seen, 3 months, is from someone starting from scratch. If you already have sales on Etsy, sometimes you'll get this information and you'll get unlocked and you're like, okay, let's go. But for someone brand new who has not started an Etsy shop before, typically 3 to 4 months, that's a good kind of goal. But we'll see people that they'll take a year to get to 100 sales. But actually, and that doesn't mean anything. So I don't want to discourage someone who's been at it for like 2 years. One of our best people ever, who's a full-time Etsy seller now, she was selling digital greeting cards. Now she's moved over to printed greeting cards. I had a call with her. She showed me all her cool printers and all her gear that she has to score the cards and cut them. It's incredible. She's in the UK. Her name's Lisa. It took her a year to make 100 sales. And now she's like doing great. So I don't, if someone's listening and they're like, "Oh, it's taken me so long," like, it's okay. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you're not gonna be a successful seller, but please do not give up yet. Like, you don't know what's waiting just around the corner for you, and maybe you're just, like, one piece of feedback away from an unlock that you're not gonna have if you're just,
It
like,
breaks the whole
piecing
thing open.
together free YouTube videos trying to make it work.
It's compounding, right? Success on anything, but definitely with Etsy selling and selling online in general is you compound all these skills. It's not like linear growth. It's like sometimes just like one little puzzle piece falls into the perfect spot, and then all of a sudden it completes the entire picture for you. And then you have to figure out the next puzzle piece that's missing, and then you break it open again over time. I love that. I want to ask some like specific tactical questions about digital product
Sure.
sellers and listings. Amongst all of your the most successful students, I guess you call them students
Yeah,
or members? Okay. Because you guys have helped over 15,000 students to date, right?
20,000.
20,000. It's impressive. So you've seen a lot of data. You have a lot of data to understand what's working, what doesn't work, all this good stuff. Some rules of thumb that I want anybody listening to this take away is how many listings should a successful digital seller have typically?
Okay, so that's the number one question we get, and usually we get it with people that are opening their shops because they only have one listing done and they're saying, "Should I list it?" And the answer is absolutely yes. This sounds crazy, and this is not like a crazy marketing thing, but Etsy is looking at each listing individually, and I will see people get sales on their first or third listing. You don't need to wait till you have 12 listings. Now, directionally, the people that are making a lot of money have more listings. They'll have maybe like 100 listings plus to make, I would say, $10,000 a month on Etsy. I think it's challenging to do that as someone that's on the newer side because it's like Pareto principle, 20% of the results give you 80% of the profits or something, whatever they say. And it's true. And sometimes it might take you that long to like figure out what you're doing. That being said, we've seen people and we've studied and analyzed shops using tools like EverBee where you're like, this person has 6 listings and oh my gosh, they're crushing it. So there's no like rule of thumb, but I will say the more listings give you more practice reps and the more reps, the better you get. But you can't let that intimidate you. You got to do it just one listing at a time because you never know which listing is going to be your hit and then you'll learn from it.
I totally agree with this. I have 2 people that come to mind right away, and they have one of them does well over $20,000 a month in revenue. Digital products, by the way. $25 product, digital product.
Mhm.
They have, like I remember when I looked, this is last year, so they probably have more listings now, but they had, like, 4 listings, and 1 listing was just absolutely crushing it, and then all the other listings were just, like, somehow just different, like, they were the same, I guess you can call it variant of that
Yeah.
same listing, like a different type of and the other one, they do, like, $5,000 a month in digital product sales, and they had like 6 listings, and so it just kinda goes to show but I think those are not necessarily they were great listings, to be very clear. They were great mock-ups, they looked very clean, they hit it right on the head with with their audience, so that's very interesting. Etsy ads, yes or no?
I would say for the majority of people coming through my program, the answer is no, because they haven't found the magic sauce yet. So then they're just throwing money at a listing that has not it's not performing. Now, if you have a listing that your conversion rate's over 4%, it is higher priced. So typically running ads to the $3 to $4 listing is a little bit tricky. For a while I was in the realtor marketing space within my Etsy shop and I would have a bundle of over $30 and yeah, it made sense to run an ad to a bundle because I'm getting a higher return whenever someone ultimately makes a sale. And it just made sense in that particular use case. But I think for a lot of new sellers, they might waste some money on ads. Now, once I started, this is more of like an advanced strategy, but once I started bringing in more revenue from my shop, I had more money to experiment with. And I used ads almost to like get to the answer of whether this is going to work or not
Yeah,
faster.
speed up the feedback process.
Yes, and so that but I'm not the majority of people. The majority of people should not be focused on ads. You don't need ads to succeed on Etsy. We have sell 5-figure, 6-figure sellers in our community that have never, they might have spent a few dollars on ads, but ads are not a critical part of their strategy. And if you're doing everything right with what the product is, that's the most important thing. Picking the right product and executing it before you even worry about Etsy optimization. That's like where the game is lost and won. If you do that piece right and focus on that, then you shouldn't have to run ads to have a successful Etsy shop.
What is a successful Etsy shop financially in your guys' world? Is it like when we're talking like numbers wise? So is it 6 figures a year? Is that kind of what people can expect to make if they're like the top tier digital product seller, or can it be upwards of $200,000 plus? I mean, where does it kind of that cap look like?
I think in the digital product space, more of 6-figure, but to be honest, and the promise of our course is not we're gonna make you a 6-figure seller, although we'll bring in coaches that are 6-figure sellers and we'll share stories of people that are. But the reality of this situation is that, and we talked about this at the beginning of this episode, 99% of the people taking my course are women. They want to have a side hustle because they have other things going on in their life that are making it difficult for them to commit to full-time work. And they're going to stop and start. So, for example, we'll have 5-figure sellers that had their second kid and they dropped out of the community for 6 months. And then I hear them, I'm like, oh, there she is. She's back. She's back doing things. So, we get it. Life is busy and we get it. So what I'll say for those people who are in that situation of life where it's like, I would love to be a 6-figure seller, but the hard truth is that I don't have 6-figure seller time on my hands, then getting your shop to $1,000 per month is like the best goal.
Mm,
That's what you should go for. Go for $1,000 per month. That's only $33. It's just over $33 per day, which is like when you break it down to that, that's totally manageable. That could be 11 $3 sales. That could
yeah,
be 2 $17 sales if you have a more expensive product. Like you can do that. And then that $1,000 you can figure out, like, is that grocery money for my family? Is that, another awesome vacation? We're going to go to Disney. Like what does that do for
super
you?
cool.
That's a more realistic goal. Now, of course, we have people come in and I don't want to discourage any men who are listening. Like we have guys come in all the time. They're doing great. Cody, my business partner, is a guy. Kevin, one of our coaches. But just who tends to be attracted to this product tends to be someone that doesn't have that much time. That being said, if you have the time or you have the energy and you're like, I'm going to stay up every day till 2 a.m. and I'm going to make this happen, then you absolutely go for it. I can think of those people. There's this one woman, Rachel. She's one of the best people to ever take our course. She made 150K in a year, 77,000 in a year with 2 kids who are all under the age of 3. And the second that she came into the program, I was like, I know exactly who she is. Whereas this 20,000 people, some people you don't hear a peep from them. She was messaging me. She was like,
Getting
I
after it.
just knew the second I saw her, she was going to be successful and nothing was going to stop her. And that ended up being true. So, there are
Mhm.
people that they're just going to push through it and they're going to be great. So, but if you
Set your
don't end
goals.
up like that, be nice to yourself because there's certain stages of life and different seasons. And like a lot of us are in a season where we have to be reasonable about what our season is.
Totally agree. And that $1,000 a month is life changing to a certain degree. And the cool thing about it is when you have $1,000 a month in income, you have $1,000 a month of an income, and you can decide if you want to take that to 10,000 if you want, or you don't have to right now. Like you have that the freedom of choice, I guess you could say. So because if you can get to 1,000, you get to 10,000. I believe just fundamentally, I think that's probably true.
Oh, yeah, it's almost like you're camping and you got, like, a little fire starter, and if you have the time, like, now that fire started, so you can know what you're doing. Like, when we were saying before, "Would I
Yeah,
ever go back to corporate work?" No, because I feel like because I've had an Etsy shop and this business, I just get how to run a business. Like, I had a friend that wanted to sell at the local bakery, and we're talking, and I'm asking her, like, "Well, what" she's like, "Well, what would I wanna sell? Like, brownies?" I'm like, "Well, we gotta go and see, like, what do customers want? What sell the most? Can we look online to see, do people want pumpkin spice donuts right now? Like, well, how could we do upsells?" I just knew all that from having the experience of running an Etsy shop. So I think just this skill set will serve you no matter what.
1,000%. You talked about brownies, for example, and like understanding what people are wanting to buy and all this stuff too. And obviously, you're a customer of EverBee, and I know that a lot of students are customers of EverBee. How should somebody that's coming in listening to this podcast today hasn't really touched EverBee too much, or maybe doesn't really know how to because they're not really data minded? and I know you have a data mind coming from your corporate world and also your business world now. How should somebody use data in EverBee kind of to make decisions for their business? Do you have any tips for them?
I think that you should be looking at a data tool like EverBee before you even touch a computer, touch materials. Like, you need to use a tool like this because you want the best return on your time. And I use tools like EverBee to get ideas of what the market is demanding about certain products and what they like. So, for example, when the Barbie movie came out last year, everyone loved Barbie, everyone loved pink. And suddenly, every single holiday after Barbie, all the bestsellers you've noticed were pink. So for Halloween this year, we got pink pumpkins, we got pink Christmas trees, pink ornaments. That's important to know because you want to have your design aesthetic match what customers want. And when you use a tool like EverBee and you can see what products, you'll be surprised or notice, hey, this pink Halloween pumpkin product is making so much more sales than the other. Why? Well, because it's hitting up that cultural trend. And so maybe you can apply that trend to not copy their product, but can you use that stored in your brain? And then when you go to make your product, you're going to be better informed when you ultimately decide what that product should look like, what features it should have, et cetera.
Love that. Totally agree. I think this is a perfect time to kind of transition over to the rapid fire questions. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite business book?
4 Hour Work Week.
Ooh, Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. That was the start of it all for me. And when we were talking about like how I can have my 2 kids and have this kind of weird blended work schedule, it's because I've set everything up with systems. I've hired people, really good people to handle certain elements of my business, and I use tech. I use tech for everything. Everything has a process, everything has a place, and it all started with 4 Hour Work Week.
I love that. What's the one thing that you wish that you knew before starting your business?
I wish I went for it earlier. So I had this idea a year before I actually did anything about it, and I would like that year back. It was a fun year. That was the year before I had kids. Like, think of all the cool things my husband and I could have been doing if I had this job that I currently have now. I mean, we would have my business partner, Cody, is a little bit younger than me, and him and his wife are all over the world and all different places traveling. That's not my season right now, but I'm like, "Man, I wish I got started because I would have had
Hmm.
that freedom earlier."
What's the worst advice that you've ever received about business? Worst advice.
I think there are a lot of quit your day job people, and I was very, very conservative before I did that. Because I think financial pressure can really stop you in growing in business. And one of the reasons that Gold City Ventures and my Etsy shop has done well is because I have an abundance mentality when it comes to money, and I'm very generous about it. Like, I've done things, like I said, the experimentation with hiring different people, purchasing expensive software. If I want to run ads, if I want to do whatever, I don't worry about it the same way that I see sometimes my peers in both the Etsy seller space and the business owner space. They're very like they're holding on to it and they just don't want to let it go.
Mm,
And money makes you run faster. There's no other way around it. So if your day job can fund your business and you can do it even for like a little bit. I know it was killer. At the end, like I was pregnant, I was staying up till 2 a.m. I was like, this is truly the worst. I remember going on a business trip. I woke up every single day at 5 a.m., which really I couldn't sleep because I was pregnant, but like I was doing stuff.
right.
Now I look at it, I'm like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to do that again. But like if I didn't hustle in that just very beginning period, while also having the day job, I don't think I would have been as generous with the money that allowed the business to grow faster. And I think a lot of people are like, quit your job. But then it hampers you because you don't have the funds needed, whether it's to buy a course to speed it up. And then now
Yeah, the confidence.
you wasted 6 hours on YouTube, like trying to read between the lines of what this person is saying. Like it's just
Yeah, I do
the more
agree
you
with this.
invest, the faster you can get results. And now anything I do is an investment. Like I just buy things to help speed up my time because I realize how valuable my time is.
I totally agree with this. We can talk about that all day probably too, but I do agree with this generally speaking for sure. How many hours a week do you work in your business?
I have it right now in my schedule that I'm working like 5 hours a day, but also when so we have a nanny. When you have a nanny and you're not using daycare, like you could get sick, the nanny could get sick, they could get canceled. It's very different. So like realistically, how often do I get 25 hours a week? not super often, but that's kind of how I want it. Like I think it's great. Like if my daughter and I have like a little day of us just doing stuff. And what's nice about having an online business is you can there's nothing like, okay, I had to be at this meeting at 10
Yeah.
a.m. You can kind of be a little more flexible. So theoretically 25 hours a week, not on my Etsy shop. Like running a business with 20,000 students at Gold City Ventures, that's a very large undertaking.
Yeah.
That's what's taking the
Huge.
most amount of time. It's not the Etsy shop or anything else. That's really what it is.
How about thinking about the business? Do you consider that work? Thinking about it, talking to your husband about the business, strategizing, high level stuff at night, just thinking, not necessarily in front of your computer, but like maybe reading about business. Like, do you consider that work or not really?
I've thought about this a lot. I don't consider it work. Sometimes I think for a lot of us that love online business, this is like our reality TV alternative. Like when people put on Real Housewives, like we just love to put on a webinar learning something new. Like it just where watch YouTube videos, that's just our thing. But I just being in this stage with little kids, and I've been listening to a lot of parent influencers who are reminding us about the importance of mental presence. I really, really struggle with that because I love what I'm doing so much and I just see so many opportunities. So actually, like sometimes for me, a major source of not being content and happiness is like I'll get a million business ideas and then I'm like, wait, I have no time to do any of these
Mm,
right now. And then that causes me the stress. So I've taken vacations from listening sometimes to podcasts and having those conversations. And recently, I just started reading fiction again because I'm like, okay, I need
mm.
to truly give myself a rest. I like this a little too much. So yeah, I do. I consider it work, kind of. I'm working on that as a person.
I get that. Last question. If your family and your friends and your customers had to get together without you and they had to write like an honest article or maybe a full on like book about you, characterizing your traits and kind of who you are and how you are and all that stuff, what do you think the general themes are that they would say?
Well, Gold City Ventures is very well reviewed online. So if you Google Gold City Ventures review, you'll find out what people think of it. And overall, I think we really care about getting our sellers to 100 sales. And every single year, I think, how can I get them to 100 sales faster? How can I eliminate the fluff? Like could I get them to 100 sales still and not make them watch X amount of videos? Can I Because I
Mm,
know I feel the weight of people at a time in their life when they're doing 100 things. I really feel the weight of like, hey, I don't want to waste their time because I'm living the same situation as them. I'm busy and I just want to get them to where they want to go without any extra stuff. And like my whole team, they really care. They're very generous with ideas. So I think that kind of comes through. Like we're sending people gifts in the mail. We're trying to make this fun. We're doing the challenges. Like we get it. And I really think that would come through. Now that's work, Julie. Also, when I record my videos, like people say like, "Oh, you're very calm. Like you understand people." When I'm like doing my job, that's my zone of genius. So sometimes I bring out. I used to work at Amazon, Apple. I'm very like system focused. So if you ask my business partner Cody, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, Julie's a little type A when it comes to things." But that's because I just want the experience to be so great for people, and like I don't want anything to be a negative experience. So yeah, I think that's what would come across.
love it. Julie, wrapping up today, thank you for coming on and sharing all the nuggets. I think our audience got a lot out of it. I personally got a lot out of it also, and I appreciate your friendship more than anything else. So thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you
Before we
for
go, absolutely. Before we go, where can people find you about Gold City Ventures? Where can people go and if they want to check it out, check you out, follow you, learn more about you? Where can they find you?
You can find me at goldcityventures.com. We also have an Instagram, Gold City Ventures. So that's GOLD, Gold City Ventures. And we have an incredible team of coaches. We have a workshop we're running right now with Emily, who has been on the EverBee podcast, how she made her $400,000 or whatever she's made at this point on Etsy using EverBee. So come check it out. And we'd love to see new faces around our community.
Amazing. Julie, thank you again. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
All right. See you later.